Hey everyone, welcome back to Brick Breakers. So today's guest is Alfredo Magana, and how I met him really quick is at an EMP after hours. So it's a program that we used to go to in college, and they happened to get together, and I met him there. And right off the bat, I noticed that he was very out there and like friendly, and he was talking about what he does, and everybody was impressed with what he was doing, since he does fraud investigation. And so today's topic is survival to growth. So here is Alfredo.
Hello, thank you for that great introduction, and thank you for having me as your guest. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So the topic is survival to growth. What does that mean to you, and why did you choose this topic?
I would say it's something that represents my life. I would say needing to unlearn so many things growing up and questioning things, questioning myself. Why am I the way that I am? So one of those things began to lead me to one answer to another answer and went into following the rabbit hole of that area, like questioning why are people in survival mode, living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to have the basic needs in their home or just in general in our environment. Why are the lines so long in the food bank? Those were the questions that I had at a very young age, in Stockton, California, which that's my hometown. Grew up there up until I was 14, and I witnessed so many of the crimes even at broad daylight, which made me question a lot and motivated me to want to be someday be in law enforcement. I originally wanted to be a U.S. Marshal, but once I began to learn more about myself and who I was, that's when things began to take more of different directions and more of my purpose and discovering who I was.
I'm kind of curious
Mm-hmm.
to understand more of when you were in that survival mindset.
Mm-hmm.
When was that moment when something clicked and you were like, I don't want to live like this, or I want to change the way that I think? Because if I remember, at the EMP after hours, that was something you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That I think you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned it as like a light bulb
Mm-hmm.
or like a fire alarm or something
Mm-hmm.
is how you mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that.
Alrighty, so I would say when I really felt the survival mode was when I first came out here to Fresno State when I was only 17 years old, first generation, trying to work a part time job and trying to just get through college. And it was just a really tough situation because no one told me that I needed to work and go to school, especially with my background. And no one told me that I was going to have all these different classes at different times. And I didn't know that certain projects were going to take longer than others and homework assignments. So it was it was always a consistent battle and survival mode between choosing schoolwork or labor so I can get by. So once I was going through that from like 17 up until I was 20, and I noticed a lot of my peers, they would get a lot of support from their parents and their family, and then and from my angle, I was needing to help my parents instead of my parents helping me. So that's one of the things where I felt extreme survival mode. That was something that where I just felt like a loop. It was like two steps forward, one step back. I would focus on trying to pay the bills. Next thing you know, I'm over here failing a midterm just because of not having that financial support or a little bit of guidance as a first generation student.
And what would you tell somebody that's in a similar situation like yours during that time?
Yeah, so that's when the sirens went off. And I was like, there has to be a different way. Why am I in this situation? Like, I'm doing my best, I'm working hard. Um, and then you know, kept networking and speaking to people, and people really I feel like I'm very approachable, especially when I was younger. I was like very like outgoing, really enjoyed speaking with everyone. And there was this gentleman that approached me, and he wanted me to do some network marketing stuff with him and stuff like that. He's like, "Hey man, like you're really good with people. Do you I think I might have an opportunity for you. And then, but first, before I tell you the opportunity, I would want you to read this. And then I read it. It was actually Rich Dad Poor Dad. So, for anyone that's in survival mode, I highly recommend that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and learn and look up the four quadrants: employee, investor, business owner, and self-employed. So where I was on survival mode, it was because I was an employee all the time and still trying to do school full time. So that's when the light bulb clicked for me. I was like, whoa, this is all making sense. And then my buddy, he was doing Amway at the time, and then they were showing the four quadrant to in the seminar too. And I was like, okay, this is all making sense. All right, so how can I merge myself over to a next box? Because I know it feels like an employee is like a routine. You're consistently on survival mode, paycheck to paycheck, and that's when I took more action and began to look into it, the four quadrant and stuff like that. And one of the things that stood out to me was that I needed to find a skill, and I was like, I do not have no skills. Um, the only skills I have was when I was like growing up, helping my parents do go to the fields, and do all these other things like taking care of my brothers. So I was like, I don't want to do none of those things, even though I have a experience in that. So I really, thought it out, and I was, you know, thinking about a solution, and that's when I began to have more of a solution mindset instead of complaining, instead of thinking why are these things happening to me. And I believe that's the survival mindset of having that victim mentality. And then once I began to take more action upon my own environment, upon my own mindset, i I began to discover a lot of things, were to the point where I just went into discovering more things of like, um, why are people broke, and not only that, it's when we're talking about broke, it's not just financially, it's also mindset. It's, the way that you view the world. You can have a broken view, and that can be a survival mindset right there. And but once you start seeking your answers, your truth, things that make sense to you, I believe that's the growth mindset.
Yeah, I love that. I love everything that
Yeah.
you mentioned. I feel like there's so much to unravel right there,
Mhm.
like from physically feeling like you're in
Mhm.
survival mode, but also mentally.
Mhm.
And when was a time that you can think back to when you were in that survival mode and
Mhm.
you used um, things that changed from survival into what would you call it now? So you're not in the survival, so you're more in a growth. What
Growth
changed
mode.
it? What changed that moment for you into a growth mode?
I would say being hungry, looking in the fridge as a college student, you're like, dang, all I have, I remember eating, cups of noodles twice because I was waiting on the paycheck and I was just like, wow, like people that make fun of top ramen in college, like it's because they've already gone through it, and I'm like, wow, now I'm going through it, like that top ramen struggle at the end of the day is real.
Yeah.
So I feel like from that point forward, I was just like, I cannot be living like this. And I always knew that there was, well, I didn't always know, but I had a feeling and I had a desire that there was always a different way. Like, one of the things that my father would always complain about growing up is like, oh, I don't know English.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I know English, why am I struggling?
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that were really going into questioning during those times. So once I realized I needed to build this skill, I remember when I was younger, when we had gatherings with friends and stuff, I would always be Snapchatting. They're like, "Man, Alfredo's always Snapchatting." That's when Snapchat had first came out, and I always had friends like, "Hey, take a picture of me," and I was like, "All right, I'll take it," and they were like, "Man, you're always Snapchatting this and that," and then I was like, "Man," and people would be like, "Man, your Snapchats are really cool. They look pretty like legit." I was like, "Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it." And then that's when the light bulb went on, and I was like, you know what? at the time I was working at Target Tech, and I was honestly, it was really a draining part-time job. Even though it was part-time, it was very draining. Dealing with different types of customers, um, different attitudes and perspectives. So it was really draining mentally, even to the extent spiritually and physically sometimes. So with that being said, I just couldn't put up with that environment anymore, and especially when I felt there was a lot of people around me in survival mode, and I feel like I was barely touching the surface of growth mode. So I was like, I took the leap of faith and I quit the job, and but 2 weeks before that, I had already purchased a camera. Like one of the electronics assistants was like, "Hey, this camera's on sale, this and that." I was like, "No way, I'm gonna buy it." So I bought it. Sure enough, I started, putting myself out there. Was telling people, "Hey, man, like I'm learning how to do photography. Is it cool if I can take pictures of you, or just like any event?" Or there was a wedding that I attended, but it was my friend's wedding. So I was like, you know what? Is it cool if I just show up and just try to take pictures, like action shots? I'm really trying to practice and learn. And they were like, all right, cool. And then and just peers and friends that I started to learn how to use aperture priority and shutter speed, full frame, good angles, all of that. So, and that's actually when I ended up. But before that, what sparked? So it was like the Snapchat, and then when I realized that I actually took a photography class at Fresno City while still going to Fresno State as an elective, and that's where I was able to gain more insight. And then from there, I started, just networking. I was getting some graduation shoots, some party shoots, wedding shoots as well. And up until, my equipment got stolen, and then from there, I was like, all right, I think God wants me to take a different direction. That's probably why it happened. Even though it's difficult to accept it when those things happen, I was like, all right, all right. So if that wouldn't have happened, I probably wouldn't have finished school, because I was already starting to drift away from school, because I'm like, I'm making good money. You know, consistent. I'm staying solid. Like I'm good. I have more time and making more money. So, and then uh, I was really grateful for that at the time. And so I got redirected through life. From that moving forward, I decided to, help small business owners and just kind of use what I had. I still have an older DSLR camera, began to do little videos and photography for small business owners, like small dealerships, small restaurants, um, just small businesses in general, because I had a passion for small business owners to want to help them and expand or bring certain knowledge or perspectives that they might not be aware of. Because I've noticed that a lot of business owners are so caught up in self-employment. That's actually one of the four quadrants that they're never truly off. So when I was able to bring certain awareness to their business, they really opened up their ears and listened, and they were willing to do certain deals with me and gain their business. So I was truly grateful for that. And from that moving forward, I just kept freelancing and continued to go through school. Um, but before that, I was not doing full time anymore. I was starting to do more part time, because I was so focused on trying to build my business and wanting to um, have a better life. But one of the things that I'm not mentioning is that, like, school at Fresno State was about to kick me out, because I was so caught up in business and trying to make things happen and get out of survival mode. And and I feel like that's why I got redirected, because I was starting to lose myself, and I was just trying to focus on the money, because I believed that money was going to get me out of my situation, when in reality it's the mindset that gets you out of your situation.
That's kind of tough because I feel like a lot of people can say, no, it's the money, it's not the mindset. But everything that you've mentioned, I've loved, and I can see how you are really, really trying. And it's hard to for some people to find the passion, because for you it was like you realized early on that you really liked photography, and some people just don't know what they like. And also to take that leap of leaving your job and starting to do something on your own is difficult when you don't know where to start, what to do. So what were some emotional barriers that you came across, or even physical, when you were transitioning from survival to growth? You realized what you like, you left your job, you obviously had a backup plan. What were some things, obstacles that you faced, and how did you overcome those?
I would say when starting out as a business owner, the beginning is the hardest. Because you don't know who's your target audience. I feel like that's one of the biggest things, knowing your target audience. Because as an amateur, you don't want to go take grad pictures right off the bat. You don't want to go pitch your services to a business owner right off the bat. So I feel like that's the hardest transition, is building that foundation. So what I did, uh, with the money that I had, just freelancing, helping small business owners, and also even just helping them with accounting, or even actually putting in that physical labor, just to keep myself up and trying to chase my vision. I feel like that's the hardest part, because your family might see you come home dirty after washing cars, or just to make that extra buck, so that way you can have enough time to work on what you truly desire. I feel like that's one of the hardest transitions, and especially when your relatives and your family are questioning, what the heck are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be done with school already. Like, but at the end of the day, I was truly trying to seek um, more freedom, I would say, because I did not enjoy, being at school 8 to 12 hours sometimes, and the next day having to wake up really early for work, 6 a.m., and, 8-hour shifts, then get off, and then having to try to look for something to eat. And then at the same time, dang, I need to get it on this paper. Oh, I need to do this and that. And then at the same time, trying to be aware of your boundaries with your social life. I feel like that's one of the most difficult things that we have as when we're younger, from like, I would say 18 to 25, is learning our personal boundaries of with our peers. I would say, especially our family, because we love them and we always try to do our best for them. So I feel like that's one of the hardest hardships, is putting yourself first when you already know that uh, there's people depending on you and looking up to you. Mm-hmm.
So I would like to ask you now, what is something that you would tell somebody that's in survival mode that wants to change to that growth mindset? What are the steps that they can take to start living that lifestyle?
I would say YouTube University.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step. I started off with just looking up Robert Kiyosaki, and from there, I seen many recommendation videos, and began to, just going through the rabbit hole. That was the most affordable way, just some internet and a laptop, and seek some knowledge. Feel like that's a great way to do it. And everything, to in order to reprogram ourselves, through our subconscious mind, we have to do things repetitively. So whenever I had some free time or I couldn't sleep, I would always try to um, find videos that can help me grow mentally, spiritually, physically, and even financially. So I would always look for those type of videos. I began to practice not to listen to mainstream media. I did my best so that way I wouldn't get influenced or programmed through my subconscious. uh, so one of the things is that we don't recognize is that we have to be aware of our diet. And I don't mean just diet physically, I mean diet, what are you letting through your eyes, your ears, and what are you speaking out into existence? Spelling, what are you spelling throughout your life? I would say that really influenced me to be more optimistic, because um, every time that I was put myself down, I would see the domino effect of that. But every time I was optimistic, I would see the domino effect of that. So I would say is practice being optimistic and seeking the things that you believe you need to work on upon yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I love everything that you're saying so far. And one big thing is, to also surround yourself with people that are you want to be more like. And I definitely want to be more like you. So
Thank you.
surround myself more with you is what I'm thinking now. And other than, YouTube University and books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or is that what it's called?
Yes, Rich Dad,
Okay.
Poor Dad.
What are other resources that helped you go from that growth, from that survival mindset to growth mindset?
I would say Andy Frisella, Real AF. Those are his podcasts, and his only fee is to share it. So if you find value, you share it with people. I feel like he's very powerful upon helping people get through business, and he helped me out a lot. I would say also the School of Greatness. They speak upon mind, body, and soul, and trauma, and how we are able to heal ourselves, and how we need to unlearn a lot of things from our trauma that trickle down to our adult life. So I would highly recommend those resources. Dr. Joe Dispenza, highly recommend his book Becoming Supernatural. The ability to create our own reality. I feel like that's key, even though we might be going through the motions at times. So it's really important to kind of tap into those resources so that we can snap out of our emotion.
Yeah, love it, love it. And we're going to be wrapping up now. So is there something that you would like to share, promote with the listeners? Where can they follow you?
Oh, yes. They can follow me on Instagram at Mr_AMV_. That's for Instagram. And for my YouTube channel, you guys can also subscribe at Magana_mindset. And that's where I speak more upon self-development and the ability to reprogram yourself. And I will be uploading more videos upon self-development. So that's the goal. Before I was just doing it where I felt more inspired, but I kind of want to take it more serious now because of the impact that I do around my environment, and sometimes we don't know what we have until we put ourselves out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I checked out some of his videos, and I love what he's doing, and I can't wait to see, you continue to upload and share that knowledge with everyone, because I think it's so important and useful.
Yes.
So is there anything else you would like to mention?
Yes, sorry about
No,
that.
it's okay. Go ahead.
I thought you were about to close it out. But I really want to quickly mention that I just recently did a partnership for our Fresno location at Extreme Electronic Recycling. We are focusing on donating Underground Railroad. So we're focusing on helping children get out of child trafficking and get them so that way they can get the necessary help. And eventually with this business, we are looking for individuals that would like to partner up with us and seek an opportunity for themselves so that way they can get out of the employee quadrant and move on over to self-employed, and eventually, have their own business, have their own system where they can also help other individuals rebuild themselves and get out of survival mode into a growth mode mindset.
I love it. And where can they go check that out or learn more about it?
Yeah, so they can find us at www.thekingofrecycling.com, or you can also find us on Instagram at extreme_electronic_recycling.
And I'll also include it in the show notes, the description, so people can go check you out and follow you. So we're wrapping it up now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know people will get value out of this. I have to listen back to it and take notes, because I know there's a lot that I heard from you that I really can start implementing in my life as well. So
Wow.
thank
Right
you.
on.